1888, Helena Petrovna Blavatsky published a book called The Secret Doctrine, an enigmatic work that unveiled the origins of the cosmos, the hidden laws of nature, and the eternal journey of the human soul. She claimed that the secret doctrine was not hers, but the echo of something far older, whispered through the ages, passed from seeker to seeker, a flame waiting to be rekindled by those who dare to listen. Who are we? Why are we here? These questions are as old as time itself, and in their answer lies Theosophy, divine knowledge, wisdom of the gods. Before time, before form, there was only the great darkness, boundless, eternal, unknowable. The cosmic night, origin of all things, and the final return of all that is. From that primordial void, light emerged, the first breath of creation, and the universe began its unfolding. Stars were born, souls awakened, and the great wheel of existence began to turn, a motion without beginning, without end. This is the ancient wisdom Helena Blavatsky sought to revive, that we are not separate beings, but sparks of the same eternal flame.
The word theosophy comes from the Greek theos, God, and sophia, wisdom. So it talks about a kind of divine wisdom, which is not the human wisdom that we can acquire by means of gathering experience or study. This is an inner wisdom that is innate in the divine nature of all of us. So the idea is that theosophical teachings come from that divine wisdom, and as we become aware of that aspect of ourselves, we come in touch with the real theosophy that is that wisdom in us.
In 1875, in a dimly lit room in New York City, two seekers, Helena Blavatsky and Henry Steele Olcott, kindled a flame that would spread across the world. They called it Theosophy, an ancient wisdom reborn, a path beyond dogma, beyond division, beyond illusion. From its earliest days, the Theosophical Society drew minds that would shape the future, visionaries and pioneers, and revolutionaries in science, music, art, literature, education, and politics.
The Theosophical Society was founded in 1875 in New York, and it was a result of a series of incidents and apparently chance meetings, one might say. Colonel Olcott, who was an American, was a person who was interested in spiritualism. He was someone who, from his youth, had been exposed to it, and he pursued it. In his later life, when he was an attorney in New York City, in the United States, it was a huge phenomenon. We can't even imagine today that front page news articles in all of the major news publications were carrying stories about phenomena related to spiritualism, which is to say the people who had died and their communications with the living. There was a particular place in Vermont where there were two brothers who some very remarkable things were said to be happening around them. Both of them were mediums. Colonel Olcott had gone to research that and to write some articles for the New York newspaper. Meanwhile, H.P. Blavatsky had come to the United States in 1874. She equally had heard about these Eddy brothers in Vermont, and she found herself at their farm at the same time as Colonel Olcott. Blavatsky and Olcott developed a friendship that ended up being him trying to find out more about her knowledge about esoteric things. Based on that, the idea came that why don't we form an organization? Initially, they formed something called the Miracle Club in order to investigate phenomena, things that they would describe as miraculous. So that formed, and then it evolved into the idea of an actual society for the study of the wisdom from abroad and esoteric subjects. A name was sought out, and somebody came up with the name, the Theosophical Society.
Back in New York, Olcott and Blavatsky decided to share an apartment near Long Acre, now known as Times Square. In Blavatsky and Olcott's New York, there were no skyscrapers. Long Acre was a quiet hub of the city's carriage industry, lined with rows of drab apartment blocks, horse stables, and blacksmith workshops. The Brooklyn Bridge was still under construction, and further downtown, on Madison Square, Blavatsky would have walked past the torch-bearing arm of the Statue of Liberty.
The theater district was 14th Street, so it was further down because where HPB and Olcott ended up living was more the northern reaches of the city, but Times Square would have been 14th Street. That's where the theaters were and all of those things. So it was still, it makes you wonder, why would she come to New York and start the society here? Because New York was not New York. Washington was famous, but London, Paris, Lamasery, which is 47th and 8th Avenue, was the northern reaches. Central Park would have been the northern reaches of the city at that time, because everything was still downtown, Wall Street, those areas, what we would consider Lower East Side. Central Park was still farms at that point. So, but they decided to live together, and that must have been scandalous at the time. As I always say, it's the first example of roommates.
It's a place that was called the Lamasery because of the very exotic sorts of touches that HPB had brought from her travels around the world. But again, it was a place where many, many people would gather, and people of all striders.
As you say, there were very different temperaments and personalities. Colonel Olcott gave the society a certain stability and respectability while she was just very galvanic. Said anything that came to mind, smoked, could curse people out, So they were, in a sense, they balanced each other. And I think that's one of the reasons the society stayed through the 19th century, through all of turmoil and different things. He gave it a certain air of respectability because he was a lawyer. He had a good old American Yankee, as they would say. He had a certain gravitas.
H.P. Blavatsky had a mission during her brief time in this world, which was to expand human consciousness and understanding.
Madame Blavatsky was in many ways an extraordinary person. In one of the letters that her teachers wrote, that we call the Mahatma letters, they said that they looked for about a century to find the right soul that could accomplish the mission that was expected of her. And this was Blavatsky.
She was an archetype in the sense that people came to her and they found in her what they wanted to find.
I think she was extraordinary because she was a combination of a mind that could perceive these higher realities and also a person that could use these powers that she had to produce different psychic phenomena. This was necessary because it is through this means that she caught the attention of the world.
She was someone who was born in Russia. At that time, it was Russia. Now, of course, it is Ukraine, in the city of Dnipro. Little did her family know at that time that she would go on to become someone of enormous influence, particularly in the Western world and then in India, in terms of the bringing of a new way and a deeper view of the ageless wisdom tradition. She was someone who traveled at a very young age. She began her travels really around the world. She was in continents all over.
A woman ahead of her time, a passionate soul, but a traveler, truly a world traveler for her time.
Madame Blavatsky remained a riddle to her closest colleagues and family members, as well as to every historian who has attempted to assemble the puzzle pieces of her life. From time to time, she emerges at various locations around the world, her bearings momentarily pinned down on the map by stories shared by those she traveled with or met along the way. But what was her motivation for her travels? What was she engaged in? No one really knows.
Really, she traveled in search of the mystic lore or the histories related to esoteric aspect of being in every place in the world.
She claimed that her secrecy stemmed from a solemn promise to protect the identity and whereabouts of her teachers, adepts or masters, in a secret ashram deep in the Himalayas.
The Masters of the Wisdom are a vital part of the whole theosophical worldview. It's the idea that there is such a thing as spiritual evolution, not just physical, not just the Darwinian type, but that the spirit, the soul, unfolds. And at a certain level, there is this idea that there are people who complete this human unfoldment process. And to those who have reached this stage of unfoldment, the term that tends to be used is the Masters of the Wisdom, or the Mahatmas, or the Great Ones. But in the founding of the Theosophical Society, they played a very important role. Actually, this was the most important role, because it was at their direction, really, that Olcott, Blavatsky, and all of the others brought this movement into being. The two masters, the two Mahatmas that were most intimately involved in the Theosophical Society were two. They went under the initials KH, which was for Kuthumi, and M, which was for Moria. HPB started to write Isis Unveiled, which became a book that was quite a sellout relating to science and theology, and trying to show the ways in which those were missing the point currently by demonstrating the ways that they had actually pointed themselves toward truth in previous times. So those were things that she did, and she brought new ideas at that time. The ideas of reincarnation, of karma, of life after death, were things that she was very fluent in speaking about.
it was remarkably successful. It was, I think the first edition sold out like in a week, and the publisher had to quickly come up with, another edition and all that. And it got very good reviews. It was an incredible, accomplishment.
Madame Blavatsky and Colonel Olcott landed in Bombay in February 1879 and settled down in Girgaon, an Indian neighborhood on the Malabar Hills. They had been invited by a Hindu reformist group called the Arya Samaj, founded by Swami Dayananda Saraswati in 1875, the same year that had seen the foundation of the Theosophical Society in New York.
When Madame Blavatsky and Colonel Olcott arrived in India, it was a time when India was going through religious reformation. There were several reform movements that were being organized, and both of them actively participated in that milieu, which was also helpful for the Theosophical Society to flourish in colonial India.
It was something where they were invited to speak and large crowds would gather to hear. And so lodges and groups were formed throughout India, and they became quite successful. Even though the society was founded in New York, in the United States, really it was in India that this movement came fully alive.
There's different groups that were unhappy with the British rule. And I think the Theosophical Society, Blavatsky and Olcott's deep, genuine interest in Hinduism and Buddhism created a space in where these different groups who might not have been in touch with each other directly, because, even though they shared an unhappiness with the Raj, they didn't necessarily share mutual ideas, but within the context of the Theosophical Society, they could meet.
If you look at the membership register of the Theosophical Society, among all the names, you would find a predominance of Indian names. And most of these Indians came from affluent elite families, upper caste Hindus, Parsis, Zoroastrians, sometimes Buddhists, and Jains as well. And all these people, they came from professional bourgeoisie, the middle class. Many of them were the Maharajas, the Zamindars. And all of these were contributing to the Theosophical Society in multiple ways. They were contributing their knowledge of Indian religions and Indian texts. They were translating many Indian texts, and these translation works helped the Theosophical Society to present itself as an authority on Indian religions, and it helped them to flourish in the Western societies as an organization which have been very supportive, very knowledgeable, very authoritative about the Indian text.
Many of the members had visions of perhaps some degree of India coming into its own right. And so some of these members got together at the convention in 1884. And although the Theosophical Society itself was not something that had political aspirations and shied away from involving itself in politics, these members of the Theosophical Society went outside of this convention, and in a meeting among themselves was where the Indian National Congress was formed. All of the founders of that organization that became instrumental in India's self-rule many years later, all of the members that founded that organization were members of the Theosophical Society.
In Sri Lanka, people believe that Olcott and Blavatsky were the first Western Buddhists, and that they became Buddhists in Sri Lanka itself, in a temple in the southern city of Gaul.
On 17th of May, after 2 days their arrival, they came to this temple, the preaching hall of our temple. Now you can see both Henry Steele Olcott and Madame Blavatsky kneeling down, observing 5 precepts following Triple Gems too, and became Buddhist.
Blavatsky and Olcott had arrived in Sri Lanka to stand in solidarity with Buddhist monks striving to breathe new life into an ancient faith. For centuries, Sri Lanka had endured foreign rule, and with it, the slow erosion of its Buddhist heritage.
Olcott found that something has to be done about this state of affairs. So he started, for instance, printing the Buddhist Catechism, a booklet good for children, but for elderly people also. He started schools, 6 major schools like Ananda College, Nalanda College, Dharmaraja College, and also another 200 smaller schools all over Sri Lanka to raise the level of education in general, but also the knowledge of Buddhism. Madame Blavatsky's Voice of the Silence actually contained the real spirit of the Bodhisattvayana. Now, real Mahayana Buddhism is actually with the ideal of the Bodhisattva. Madame Blavatsky had that ideal, not to get your own enlightenment until all beings are enlightened.
If nothing else, what people today have to be grateful to Blavatsky about is about, making Tibetan Buddhism popular, because all the early Buddhist scholars in the West were Theosophists. D.T. Suzuki, who was a Japanese Zen Buddhist scholar who introduced Zen to the West, he was a Theosophist. Christmas Humphreys, a leading Buddhist scholar. One of the people he taught was Alan Watts, who in the 1950s and 60s in America was a popularizer of Buddhism and Zen. Evans Wentz, who put together what we know as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, he was a early Theosophist. So all of that frontline stuff in the early 20th century, they were all Theosophists. And I would suspect many of the people today practicing Tibetan Buddhism don't recognize that, Blavatsky is the one who basically imported it.
In 1882, Blavatsky and Olcott chose Adyar in the southern city of Madras as the new headquarters of the Theosophical Society. Not long after, Madame Blavatsky, frail in health and surrounded by growing controversy, would leave India and relocate to Europe. She settled in Würzburg, a small German town where she began writing her magnum opus, The Secret Doctrine, describing the birth and the evolution of the cosmos and humanity's place in it. The book was based on a manuscript called The Stanzas of Dzyan, a text of unknown origins, written in a language unknown to modern scholars.
She tried to show that behind all religions and philosophies in the world, there is a common thread. And she called that the secret doctrine.
The age-old question of who I am, why am I here, are questions that the secret doctrine goes into in great depth. So the foundation for the secret doctrine is a book, actually stanzas from a book, the stanzas of Xian. It's a book that is of Tibetan origin, said to be of Tibetan origin, although it's one that has never been recognized or as yet fully discovered. But that was the basis, the stanzas that HPB remembered from this text. And based on that, the secret doctrine developed in two particular areas, one related to the cosmos and its beginnings, the other related to humanity, and its beginnings, cosmogenesis and anthropogenesis.
It's nothing new. It was, the Neoplatonists knew it. All the great mystics knew it. It's in Sufi mysticism. It's in Buddhist philosophy. It's in Indian philosophy. Her core belief is that initially, this is in Isis, that there was a common belief at one time, an ancient wisdom tradition that religions are distortions of, so to speak.
The bulk of what is the secret doctrine is actually the corroboration that is engaged in from hundreds of different sources, most of which she did not have the actual physical documents. And it had to be corroborated that these were in fact genuine quotes that had occurred.
So the secret in the secret doctrine is really the esoteric doctrine that she's pulled together. There's a great line in it. She says that all she's done is brought a nosegay of flowers, and all she's done is the string that ties it together.
According to the secret doctrine, at the heart of all existence is an infinite, eternal, and unchanging reality beyond human comprehension. This is the absolute, a formless, unknowable essence that transcends time, space, and individual existence. The secret doctrine states that everything, whether a universe, a planet, a species, or an individual soul, follows a pattern of birth, growth, decline, and renewal. All beings, from the smallest atom to the greatest cosmic intelligence, are interconnected. Every soul or monad is an expression of the one divine essence and progresses through the evolutionary experiences across lifetimes.
In all of the ageless wisdom and in Theosophy, the idea is that we are divine sparks, that we are exactly the same as the light from which we came, but that we have wandered far from home. Basically, we are all going through this pilgrimage of repeated incarnation in the process of unfolding this deeper, not just understanding, but this deeper aspect of our being, that we are not separate.
Underlying all existence is an eternal, rhythmic motion that Madame Blavatsky called the Great Breath. This divine breath of the unknowable deity breathes out a thought, which then unfolds into the manifested cosmos. During cosmic rest, the great breath contracts, drawing all manifested forms back into the absolute. The breath becomes a stone, the stone a plant, the plant an animal, the animal a man, the man a spirit, and the spirit a god. In the secret doctrine, the great breath is the eternal motion, an aspect of the one absolute, symbolizing consciousness itself. The universe is in a constant state of creation, driven by a fundamental pulse that continuously generates and regenerates existence. The same rules that govern space also govern atoms and us as sentient beings. Since the beginning of time, electrons and protons have neither decayed nor have they ceased to move. Likewise, living things are in perpetual transformation, No person, animal, or plant remains the same from one moment to the next.
Each human being is a hologram of the entire universe. In the scientific enterprise, the tendency has been to look outside. In the spiritual enterprise, very much the call is to look inside. And the whole universe is mirrored inside us. And particularly, this is very strongly emphasized by Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras, for example. Even this became the practice of doing natural science. Was supposing I wanted to study something about the sun, they would indicate where to focus my attention inside carefully so I can understand something about the sun.
So the Theosophical Society proposes that there is far more to the cosmos and to human beings that we can perceive with our senses. There are in fact 7 dimensions for the cosmos and for human beings. And all of these are realities. They are not just a result of the activity of matter.
The idea that we are not just physical beings, but we exist on multiple planes. That not just the human being, but the universe is multi-dimensional. We understand this basically, everybody thinks in terms of body, mind, spirit. But she was more specific in this explanation that not just the human being, but the universe itself exists on 7 different planes of being, but that they are interwoven, intermingled.
Blavatsky's septenary cosmology envisions the universe as a living system where matter and spirit evolve together across 7 levels of existence, each refining and spiritualizing matter. Just as our universe is part of a greater multiversal order, Earth follows its own 7-fold evolutionary path. According to Blavatsky, there are in fact 7 Earths functioning in different dimensions. Our physical Earth, the only one we can see and experience, and 6 others existing on higher dimensional planes. Likewise, human beings are 7-fold in nature, composed of 7 planes of existence. The lower 4 aspects, physical body, vital energy, astral body, and desire body, are mortal and tied to material existence, while the higher 3, higher mind, spiritual soul, and divine spirit, are immortal and represent the true eternal self.
Knowing about this, we can embark in an inner journey of discovery to try to see what is eternal in us. We know our bodies are not eternal. We know our emotions, our thoughts are constantly changing. Is there anything eternal in us beyond the levels of the mind, beyond the levels of the emotion? This is what Theosophy proposes, and there are many ways to embark in this self-inquiry, which ultimately leads us to a knowledge of who we really are.
While we often perceive space as an empty void, with Earth as a mere speck within its vastness, Madame Blavatsky described it quite differently. Space, she wrote, is neither a limitless void nor a conditioned fullness, but both. The boundless container of all that exists, seen and unseen. She attributed the vibration of atoms to Fohat, the dynamic force linking spirit and matter, setting primordial substance into motion and shaping the cosmos.
As time passed, science discovered many of the things that Blavatsky was proposing in The Secret Doctrine. For example, she said that the atoms were divisible. This is something that scientists didn't think was true. Actually, the word atom means non-divisible. And she says that is not true. The atoms are divisible, and then the divisions of the atoms are divisible again. And then she said that the atoms have energy and motion, and therefore they had a potential to generate forces. This is again something that scientists didn't think was true. They thought of the atoms as little balls, inert balls of material, of gold, of silver, etc. And then she said that all the forces in nature are really expressed through some form of matter, that they are not invisible things, but they are actually different forms of matter that are expressing those forces. Now, these three things are the foundation of what later became quantum mechanics.
In 1911, physicist Max Planck made a groundbreaking discovery. Space was not empty. It was brimming with hidden energy. Even at absolute zero, where atoms should be motionless, they retain energy. This was not limited to atoms and molecules, but extended to the vacuum of space itself, which held an infinite reservoir of intrinsic energy. Planck called this zero-point energy. Einstein, who is said to have kept Blavatsky's secret doctrine on his table, revealed that energy and mass are interchangeable, suggesting space itself holds the potential to generate particles.
People started to become aware that the invisible world, the world of the atom, which was invisible in and of itself, but the idea that this even was not the smallest particle. People started to become aware that we are living in a world that most of it is unseen.
Modern physics now views zero-point energy as a universal field permeating all existence, from the smallest subatomic particles to the largest cosmic structures, a concept remarkably similar to Blavatsky's idea of a fundamental force underlying all creation.
When Blavatsky talks about the manifestation of the cosmos, she doesn't seem to support the idea of the Big Bang, the idea that everything came from one single center. It seems from the allegorical language that we read in the Secret Doctrine, it seems that what this is saying is that the manifestation of the cosmos happens in all space at once. Also, there is the idea that this happens in a cyclical way. And there are some scientists today that they recognize several flaws in the theory of the Big Bang, and they have left that theory and are trying to develop different theories for the universe, and they are all finding that cyclic models of the universe are quite good to describe what we see. So some scientists are moving in the direction of the Secret Doctrine in this subject too.
How did a woman in 1888 come upon all this wisdom? Blavatsky did not take credit for her knowledge, but called it occult science, universal truths preserved by the ancient wisdom tradition, passed down by initiates and adepts throughout history. This was the foundation of all religions and philosophies, knowledge that could only be grasped through deep spiritual training and direct experience, rather than intellectual study alone. This is what she called Theosophy. From Würzburg, Madame Blavatsky moved to Ostend, Belgium, before finally settling in London in 1887. This was the London of Sherlock Holmes, Jack the Ripper, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and the picture of Dorian Gray. A city steeped in mystery and intrigue. Around this time, Theosophy began making waves across Europe, and Blavatsky herself became something of a cult figure in London's intellectual and spiritual circles. Her residence on Lansdowne Road became a gathering place for many notable figures, including Oscar Wilde, the Irish poet William Butler Yeats, and even the young Mahatma Gandhi. There was one more famous visitor to the Blavatsky residence at Lansdowne Road, Annie Besant. A passionate opponent of all injustice, Besant had already made a name for herself as a writer, trade union activist, and lecturer for the National Secular Society, the Fabian Society, and for the Social Democratic Federation, as well as a member of the London School Board. Annie Besant was one of the most influential women of her time, yet despite her many accomplishments, she felt that something was missing from her philosophy of life, a puzzle piece yet to be found. That changed when the 2 hefty volumes of The Secret Doctrine arrived on her desk when William Steele, editor of the Pall Mall Gazette, had asked her to review them. She joined the Theosophical Society in 1889 and immediately became a close trustee of Blavatsky. Together with fellow theosophist Charles Webster Leadbeater, Annie Besant embarked on a series of clairvoyant experiments, a journey that would ultimately reshape the course of art history forever. In 1910, Russian painter and theosophist Vasily Kandinsky created a watercolor that is now widely regarded as the first abstract artwork in the history of painting. Meanwhile, in Sweden, another theosophist, Hilma af Klint, was developing a vast body of work known as the Paintings for the Temple, a visionary series far ahead of its time. In Paris, Czech artist František Kupka, influenced by Blavatsky's work, began exploring the interplay of vibration, radiation, and waves, striving to capture the essence of sound through color. By now, Blavatsky's Secret Doctrine had found its way onto the bookshelves of countless artists, deeply influencing the artistic landscape of the time. Theosophical ideas were particularly evident in the works of symbolist painters who explored themes such as spiritual initiations, the masters of wisdom, oneness and unity, the balance of masculine and feminine energies, reincarnation, and the evolution of the soul. Rather than striving for an accurate representation of the visible world, artists began to depict an invisible reality, one of energy, consciousness, and deeper meaning. What many may not realize is that this radical transformation in painting was sparked by something unexpectedly small, a modest theosophical book that served as the hidden catalyst.
In 1905, a book was published by Annie Besant and Charles Webster Leadbeater. The title was Thought Forms, and this book was going to have quite a significant impact on the development of abstract art.
Thought Forms is a very important book because when you look at the Western art history, you realize that most of the names that today we admire, they were inspired by the thought forms. I mean, I can easily imagine, like early 20th century, names like Hilma af Klint, Kandinsky, Mondrian, Malevich, Olcott, they have this book in their libraries.
By that time, Besant and Leadbeater had become very prominent figures in the Theosophical Society. Besant had become practically the leader of the international movement. Leadbeater and Besant were collaborating. Leadbeater had clairvoyant abilities, so the collaboration was based also on that. Leadbeater was exploring the other dimension with his abilities, and he and Besant together then would write books that would explain what these experiences meant. The essential idea that you find in the book, in Thought Forms, is the fact that out of our emotions, of our feelings, and also of our thinking processes more generally, there are forms that can be observed around us and that usually have particular shapes and particular colors. And this creates a kind of symbolism that can be interpreted. So on the basis of the color and the shape that you can see, you can tell more or less in what kind of mental state or emotional state a person is at that moment.
To Besant and Leadbeater, thoughts were far more than mere mental activity. They were dynamic forces, carrying both energy and power, capable of shaping reality. Every thought has a distinct shape, color, and vibration, forming an actual entity in the subtle, non-physical realms. These forms are not just imaginary, they exist in the astral and mental planes, affecting both the thinker and the surrounding environment.
It was a moment of change. It was just before the World Wars, Industrial Revolution was happening, and there were also many scientific discoveries and inventions that were also looking at the invisible world. The simplest example is the X-ray. So in that moment of transition, I think the book, 1905, Thought Forms, brought hope most of these artists, because it was a gateway for them to a different world that actually freed them from the destructive and limited conditions that the life was offering at that period.
When first published more than a century ago, Thought Forms sparked an artistic revolution, one that continues to inspire artists today, including Swedish contemporary artist Christine Ödlund.
Theosophy came into my life through music. I was studying music, electroacoustic music, in the early 2000s. I came across this book, Thought Forms, by Besant and Leadbeater, and I was looking in this book without reading it. When I came to the part with the musical thought forms, I immediately knew what it was. Also, the symbols, atoms, molecules, and subatomic motion is so artistically presented in occult chemistry, the book Besant and Leadbeater. That has been a great inspiration, and I use it in my art a lot. I'm very interested in the concept of clairvoyance, to see clear all these invisible processes and phenomena in nature. That I think is what my art is about. It's really difficult to, as Annie Besant wrote in her book, to show these clairvoyant observations of thought form in watercolor. Doesn't really show you the electric colors and the motions of these musical thought forms. So I animated them and did video projections onto cut screens. Every living organism have this wish to communicate. We are all connected and have a common ancestor. Even the smallest organism with one cell until plants, fungi, humans, animals, the big blue whales are eukaryotes. We have more in common than we are different, I think. And I have this idea of one day be able to have a communication with a plant, for example, to bridge the language barrier between humans and plants. We could really hear all the communications surrounding us.
According to Blavatsky, the process of creation unfolds through sacred geometry, from dots to lines to forms, mirroring the divine blueprint of the universe.
What you can see with many artists who are inspired by theosophy and esoteric ideas more generally, and who are moving increasingly towards abstraction, is the use of geometric forms. So the idea is that God is actually an architect who has created the universe on the basis of particular shapes. So for instance, with the triangle, with the point up, the idea is that this is pointing towards a higher dimension, so it is the aspirations towards the higher dimensions of reality. With the square, usually it is nature, it relates to materiality. Circle is perfection, it relates also to the divine or to God. So if you understand the symbolical language, then you can make sense also of what you see in some of these paintings.
The gradual shift towards abstraction was particularly evident in the work of Piet Mondrian, a Dutch painter. his portrayal of trees once grounded in naturalism became progressively more abstract, ultimately evolving into the geometric compositions that defined his legacy. Together with fellow Theosophist painter Theo van Doesburg, Piet Mondrian developed neoplasticism, an artistic movement that abandoned the details of appearance in favor of pure abstraction. In their art, Mondrian and van Doesburg emphasized straight lines, geometric balance, and clearly defined primary colors, seeking to express a deeper, universal order.
So he wrote a whole essay about this, about neoplasticism. He wanted to publish it in the Dutch Theosophical journal called Theosophy. So he presented this essay, and this essay was rejected by the journal, although he was a member of the Theosophical Society, simply because the average members of the society at the time couldn't understand what he was talking about, and perhaps were still more attached to a traditional artistic form. Perhaps they could appreciate more, symbolism, more figurative forms of painting, and were not ready to understand the new message that Mondrian wanted to send.
Vasily Kandinsky saw art as a spiritual endeavor, not just a visual experience. Kandinsky was deeply inspired by Theosophy, and the ideas of spiritual evolution are reflected in his book, Concerning the Spiritual in Art, which became a manifesto for modern abstract art. Kandinsky envisioned humanity as a great pyramid, where the majority of people existed at the broad base, preoccupied with material concerns. As one ascended, fewer individuals reached the upper levels, representing higher spiritual and artistic awareness. At the pyramid's peak were the visionary artists, those capable of perceiving spiritual truths beyond the material world, creating art that elevates human consciousness.
The higher you go, the more art becomes rarefied and becomes abstract. At the top of the pyramid is the artist who has understood this new message and who is producing this abstract art. And for Kandinsky, this artist is like the romantic hero, is like the Prometheus who is giving this new message to humanity, which is a form of light also, because it is a spiritual message.
According to Blavatsky, underlying all manifestation was the eternal motion, an aspect of the one absolute. She compared it to fire, which is never static. It constantly moves, consumes, transforms, and renews itself. Her universe was like a boundless eternal flame, one that is never extinguished, but constantly changes form. In 1887, Blavatsky founded a magazine aptly named Lucifer, a title that resonated with her deep belief in the liberating power of light and knowledge. She also wrote extensively on the myth of Prometheus, the Titan who defied the gods to bring fire to humanity.
One of the most important artists in the context of symbolism was Jean Denville, a Belgian painter, who was in fact a theosophist. All his life he was involved in the Theosophical Society. He was a member of the Theosophical Society. For a long period, he was even the president of the Belgian section of the Theosophical Society, so quite a prominent and active member. And one of the most famous paintings of Jean Denville is the Prometheus. So in the painting by Denville, you see this man who is captured in a moment of motion, so almost like running, and has this light in his hands and is ready to offer this light to humanity. Scriabin, a very famous Russian composer at the time, who was part of the Russian networks, who was deeply imbued with spirituality in the early 20th century, spent some time in Brussels and became a good friend of Denville. And it is in fact through Denville, apparently, that he discovered the theme of Prometheus. And there came the idea of creating a whole musical piece based on the idea of Prometheus.
So I first opened a book of Scriabin when I was about 14 and played some of the harmonies and was just immediately just stunned. I thought, what on earth is this? Where has this come from? Like, why is these are extraordinary sounds and harmonies. I've never heard anything like it before. And that's totally in keeping with his worldview and his sort of ambition for his music, which was to kind of transcend reality, transcend what's around us. And you can hear it in the music. You can hear his attempts to kind of just get beyond the ordinary. So Scriabin came to Brussels in 1909, 1910, and during that time he met Delville, and they were, I think, greatly infused with each other, and Delville gave Scriabin a copy of the 2 volumes of The Secret Doctrine and said, you should set this to music, or so the story goes. Around that time, Scriabin started the sort of composition of Prometheus, which is his 5th symphony or 5th large-scale orchestral work, nicknamed The Poem of Fire. And at that time, Delville was also painting his portrait of Prometheus. So the story goes that Scriabin was in one room composing, Delville was in another room painting, and so there's this sort of cross-pollination between the two. So Prometheus, or the Poem of Fire, to give it its full title, is based on a version of the Mystic Chord. You hear it right at the beginning, and it's a totally new way of starting a piece, really, for Scriabin. There's not really anything before this piece that starts in quite this manner. So I think the influence of the Secret Doctrine in Scriabin's music is a complex one, but there are definitely some key things that we can sort of hear and see in the music. The first is this idea of sort of cyclic rejuvenation. I mean, that's you find that in the Secret Doctrine, this constant sort of almost spiral-like motion upward the whole time. And you hear this in Scriabin's music. There are lots of circles on many different levels, so we get them melodically, these sort of melodic motives that sort of go around and come back on themselves, or that kind of link up in the chain, sort of going round in circles. A very specific connection with the Secret Doctrine and Prometheus, Scriabin's Prometheus, is towards the end of the work, a choir enters. And for many years, it was thought that this choir was just singing vowel sounds. So you just see in the score these vowel sounds. And it was just sort of discovered or noticed not that long ago that actually it's a name that they're singing, and it's the name Uehu, which is a name from the Secret Doctrine and is described as the rootless root of everything, father and mother. So it's like the ultimate sort of unity beyond all other things. And this is very significant. This is what the choir sings at the end of Prometheus. It's a very, very clear connection with what Scriabin is reading. So I think a great testament to Scriabin and Delville's sort of mutual admiration for each other and connection is definitely shown in the original sort of frontispiece for Prometheus, which was designed by Delville, and is what you see on the front of every score of Prometheus when you buy it. And it is a sort of lyre with an androgynous face. And that's a very significant thing, this face which is both masculine and feminine, this unification of two separate things, or just sort of unity before things are divided. And I think that's very, very fitting, particularly given the connection in Prometheus with Uehu being sung by the choir towards the end. So I think there's no accident that that is the face that we see on the score.
Miss Annie Besant is a very interesting character and, of course, a very central figure in the history of the Theosophical Society. So she reached India in 1893, soon after delivering lectures at the World Parliament of Religions in Chicago. And when she arrived in India, she toured across the country.
Annie Besant was a legend. She was a great visionary, and she was a multifaceted personality. When she came to India and decided to stay here and work here, she was meticulous, and she learned the language, the culture, she understood everything, and she read all the scriptures. She was very thorough, and she knows the country, and she held India very close to her heart.
She was so much in love with the Indian culture that she also started presenting herself as a Brahmin in the previous incarnation. She also started wearing the sari, which is very interesting and which shows her love for India and Indian culture.
Sarojini Naidu was a great poet and a freedom fighter. She remarked that Annie Besant came to India as a stranger, but left an indelible mark on Indian politics and particularly women's movement in India.
India was a British colonial society. It had a colonial form of government when Mrs. Annie Besant entered India. And this is a time when the Congress Party was actively participating in the anti-colonial freedom struggle.
In 1913, Annie Besant joined the Indian National Congress, the same organization that had seen its beginnings at Adyar 3 decades earlier. At the age of 67, Annie Besant set to work on behalf of the Indian freedom struggle and founded 2 newspapers, New India and Commonweal. In 1915, she built a large lecture hall on Armenian Street in downtown Madras, naming it after Gopal Krishna Gokhale, who had visited Adyar the previous year. The Grand Gokhale Hall quickly became the focal point for nationalists in Madras, hosting influential voices such as Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru. It was here on September 3, 1916, that Annie Besant launched the All India Home Rule League with Dadabhai Naoroji, the revered great old man of India, serving as its first president.
The Home Rule League is a very important chapter in Annie Besant's life, as well as in the Theosophical Society's connection to Indian nationalism. And the Theosophists strongly assisted Annie Besant in the Home Rule League. Two of her important collaborators in the Home Rule League and the Home Rule movement were B.P. Wadia, the eminent Parsi Theosophist from Bombay, and Mr. Arundel, Mr. George Arundel, who was a British Theosophist.
The goal of the Home Rule League was, as its name suggested, to achieve self-government in India. Its leaders delivered passionate speeches, rallying public support, while petitions signed by hundreds of thousands of Indians were submitted to the British authorities. Leveraging the Theosophical lodges as a nationwide network, the League rapidly spread its message. Within just a year of its founding, Annie Besant's movement had grown to 27,000 members across India.
Annie Besant was active in the Home Rule movement from 1916, and this became a very widespread movement all across India. As a result of that, the British government became very alarmed and decided to put her under house arrest in 1917. So she was given a few options where she could be interned, and she chose Ooty. Ooty was a place where the Theosophical Society had a bungalow or a cottage, which was built by Colonel Olcott. They called it Gulistan. She was accompanied by two of her close aides, Arundel and Wadia, who also were interned in Ooty at the same time. She continued to actively promote the idea of self-rule during her house arrest, and she unfurled the red-green flag of Home Rule movement. And this flag is very interesting because on the right side, top left of the flag, rather, you would see the Union Jack. There are red-green stripes in the flag, and there are also 7 stars, which represent the 7-star constellation or the Saptarishi of Hinduism. So you can see how symbols of Hinduism are used in Annie Besant's politics, which is very interestingly linking theosophy, occultism on the one hand, and nationalism and politics on the other.
Annie Besant's internment ignited a wave of unrest across India. Even previously hesitant moderate leaders like Motilal Nehru, Jawaharlal Nehru, and Gandhi joined the Home Rule League, lending it unprecedented momentum. Massive protests erupted nationwide, uniting Indians in their demand for self-rule. By trying to silence Annie Besant, the colonial government now had all of India speaking on her behalf. On January 1st, 1918, Annie Besant made history as the first female president of the Indian National Congress, delivering her opening speech to 4,000 delegates from across India. Her voice, almost miraculously, carried to the farthest reaches of the massive audience.
But Annie Besant's election as the president of the Indian National Congress is extremely important in terms of the history of the Congress Party as well as the history of Indian politics, because she was the first woman to be elected as the president of the Indian National Congress. And this is a huge, important event.
Drawing inspiration from that, Annie Besant and Margaret Cousins established the Women's Indian Association in 1917 at this very premises. Dr. Annie Besant was the president, and under her dynamic leadership, this WIA became very strong, and it spread its wings and spread all over India.
Many Indian freedom fighters had a close contact with the Theosophical Society. Gandhi wrote in his autobiography that he was introduced to the Bhagavad Gita by 2 Theosophists. These were Bertram Cately and Archibald Cately. When Gandhi was in England, a student of law in London, he also registered as an associate member of the Theosophical Society in London. Gandhi actually took up an Indian clothing giving up the Western clothing, and that became a very important symbol for Gandhi's politics. But if you remember, Mrs. Besant took up Indian sari during her political work before Gandhi. So you can say this idea of using the cloth as a political symbol started with Mrs. Besant in India, which Gandhi took up later on. The Nehrus, Motilal Nehru and Jawaharlal Nehru, both of them had brief connections with the Theosophical Society. Motilal Nehru joined the Theosophical Society very briefly, but he eventually left. And Jawaharlal Nehru later on wrote in his autobiography that probably it was curiosity that led him to Theosophy. What happened interestingly, due to Motilal Nehru's connection to the Theosophical Society, Jawaharlal, his young son of 11 years, was home tutored by a theosophist called Mr. Ferdinand T. Brooks. Jawaharlal Nehru would write in his autobiography later on that the few years that he was associated with Brooks helped him to learn a lot about Indian religions and spirituality. He also saw an old Colonel Olcott and had fond memory as a child. So I think Nehru's idea of diversity, Nehru's idea of pluralism and cosmopolitanism comes from the theosophical ideas of oneness and universal brotherhood. The idea of India that people such as Nehru and Gandhi would be espousing in their eventual years was something were also espoused by Colonel Olcott and Mrs. Besant.
In 1920, Annie Besant parted ways with the Indian National Congress as her vision of gradual home rule lost appeal. Inspired by Gandhi's passive resistance movement, Indians now demanded complete independence from Britain. Though she would not lead India to self-rule, there was someone else, a Mahatma who would rise to guide the nation towards its long-awaited freedom. In 1909, Charles Leadbeater discovered a 14-year-old South Indian boy, Jiddu Krishnamurti, who had been living with his father and brother at Adyar. Leadbeater saw Krishnamurti and his friends playing on the beach and was amazed by the boy's aura, predicting that Krishnamurti would one day become a great teacher, the new torchbearer of truth that Blavatsky had prophesied about.
But as a very young person, it became very clear that he was, in fact, he had a deep connection with some depth of spiritual wisdom that you would not anticipate in a 13 or 14-year-old boy. Out of that came his initial writing, his first thing, of the At the Feet of the Master. But he was someone who went on to become a world teacher.
Krishnamurti and his brother Nithya were adopted by Annie Besant, who sent the boys to England for their education. In 1911, the Theosophical Society founded the Order of the Star in the East to prepare the world for the anticipated arrival of the world teacher, with Krishnamurti appointed as its head.
This is a great mystery. If you read his life, how did Leadbeater and Annie Besant pick up this boy? He was not intelligent, he was unhealthy. To all external appearances, he seemed to be a wrong candidate for being a world teacher. And yet they never changed their mind. They saw his aura and they predicted that this boy is going to be the world teacher. Now, he couldn't pass any examination. He couldn't get admission in Cambridge or Oxford. And so from the worldly standpoint, he was a dull student. But that man turned out to be a teacher, lectured all over the world and gave out a totally new philosophy, directing the minds and the consciousness of human beings toward this quest for truth or for self-knowledge. That's an incredible happening.
As Krishnamurti came of age, he began traveling and lecturing around the world, quickly gaining a large following among Theosophists and attracting widespread attention from the global press. Krishnamurti's perceived messianic status caused friction among the Theosophists, leading Rudolf Steiner, head of the German section, to resign, taking most of the German Theosophists with him.
Right from the beginning in Theosophy, the emphasis was on coming upon wisdom. That's why they said Theosophy is the wisdom religion. It's not a religion, not one of the religions, but the wisdom religion. And they regarded all the different religions as paths to the truth. What is the philosophic difference between Krishnamurti and what the Theosophists at that time said was that Krishnamurti said truth is the pathless light. That means this insight is not a product of thought. You don't get there through scripture or readings or rituals and so on. There is no path to come upon the truth.
To look inside more and more impartially. And so whether we call it self-knowledge or self-inquiry or self-observation, those are just different words of trying to convey that. But if I look at myself more and more impartially, what I see gradually changes. And then I can become more and more free of my wish, my desire, or my fear, or my acquisition. And this is the fundamental call actually in all the teachings.
The Theosophical Society may have declared him the vehicle of the Mahatmas, building a cult around him. But Krishnamurti rejected the role of guru or authority. Instead, he emphasized the pursuit of truth, not through organizations, ceremonies, or worship, but within oneself. He finally dissolved the Order of the Star in the East during the annual Star Camp at Ommen in the Netherlands, giving his famous speech, "Truth is a pathless land."
I maintain that truth is a pathless land and cannot be approached by any path whatsoever, by any religion, by any sect. Truth being limitless, unconditioned, unapproachable by any path whatsoever, cannot be organized, nor should any organization be formed to lead or coerce people along any particular path. I'm concerning myself with the only one essential thing, the true freedom of man.
He was one of those people that come around perhaps once in a generation or two, but he was someone who had the sense that all of the trappings of institutions, of organizations, of movements had a way of defeating his efforts at the sort of freedom. You know, he proclaimed that he's here for one purpose, to set human beings absolutely and unconditionally free.
The Theosophical Society said that belief is not religion, that the quest for truth is the highest religion. And so in a sense, they brought something new into the world. Krishnamurti saw that it's becoming like another religion, and that was what it was meant to be. So he brought it back into the realm of inquiry, into the unknown. Only Annie Besant really understood that and went along with him, because in her own life, she had followed the truth every time she saw. So she didn't think that he was rebelling against Theosophy. But the other leaders thought so, and so that created a division.
The word authority means one who originates something, the author. The word comes from the word author, the one who begins something, originates something, and the rest of the people follow it, make it into an authority, and then it's dead. So one must be very careful if you really want to go into this question of meditation, to be completely, wholly, inwardly be free from all authority, from all comparison. I don't know if you can do it, including that of the speaker, especially that of the speaker. That is me.
So he didn't accept disciples and he didn't become a guru for anybody. He said, you are the guru and you are the student both.
For the rest of his life, Krishnamurti gave public lectures, engaged in group discussions, and debated scholars, politicians, and leaders worldwide, establishing himself as one of the most influential philosophers and teachers of the 20th century. In 1939, Adyar would attract one more famous resident, the pioneering educationalist Maria Montessori.
Maria Montessori joined the Theosophical Society in 1899. She was one of the great educators of her time. She lived here in Madras at that time. She came at the invitation of George Arundel, and she lived right here in this Olcott bungalow. And because of World War II, she stayed here during the course of the war. She was persona non grata back in Italy. But she stayed here, and because of the awareness of her teaching methods, really it was here from this place that the Montessori method took wings in India. She would have classes here. 300 educators would be gathered here to learn the Montessori method, which then spread throughout India and is quite alive here to this day.
Maria Montessori's cosmic education, a central philosophy of her later work, was deeply influenced by Theosophy, particularly during her time in Adyar. Its core message was that everything in the universe is interconnected and each individual has a unique role to play in the grand order of life. Montessori presented history, science, and culture as an interwoven story, helping children see how all things, stars, plants, animals, and humans, are connected, mirroring theosophical ideas of cosmic evolution and the unity of all existence. The Adyar campus is now home to two schools, the Olcott Memorial School and the Adyar Theosophical Academy. The Olcott Memorial School, established by Colonel Olcott himself, provides free education to children in need, while the Adyar Theosophical Academy, a more recent initiative, follows a holistic approach to learning inspired by the principles of Theosophy.
This is Olcott Memorial IS Secondary School, and Olcott has started this school in 1894.
Olcott supported universal access to education, especially for those marginalized by colonial structures. He was concerned about education for the poor and for girls, and pushed for education in local languages rather than only in English.
It has become so successful, and everybody who comes here, they believe Olcott is always watching them.
Olcott School has a rich legacy of educating children from disadvantaged section of our society. It caters to the physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, and emotional need of every child. We are pioneers in starting the noon meal scheme. Since Olcott believed that a sound body is essential for a sound mind, and education will last only if children are physically fit. We have various programs like smart classes, digital education, hands-on experiments, STEM classes, sports, music, dance, so that the children become a completely grounded personality and are able to face the challenges of the world tomorrow.
Children, today we are going to paint thought forms. What colors come to your mind when you think of love and friendship?
I believe love and friendship comes in many different ways, and they're all perfectly imperfect. So I think the colors might be a splash of pink, a splash of black, and a hint of white.
Yes, Surya?
I think friendship should be in the shape of a rectangle with a blob in the middle.
First, we will meditate together and think about love, friendship, and oneness of all beings. And then we will paint the thought forms that come to our mind. Is that okay?
The objective of the Theosophical Society is the transformation of individual and society. And so it is very apt that we are into the education of children at a young age. You can see that there are these three great educationists who came about probably because of the impact of the Theosophical thought. So that is Maria Montessori, Rudolf Steiner, and J. Krishnamurti. And they've all been looking at child as a unique being with a lot of potential which is inside, and looking at the child not as a clay to be molded or a blank slate on which you write upon, or a mind that's just crammed or filled with knowledge, but it's more about looking at the divine spark which is there within the child. There's a kind of creativity which is the inner core of every being, and how to bring that out. Annie Besant was a person who, whatever she believed in, she did that with efforts which are unmatched. And education was one field which is very, very dear to her heart. She saw education as an empowering tool for the Indian population. And she saw that this is the only tool which can liberate the population from ignorance, from poverty, and from social inequality which was there at that time. And so there were a number of schools that were started by her. And the other part where her theosophical ideas have contributed, where she sees child as an immortal individual being who has come into the world. And the child may be young in body, but may be wiser than even the adults around the child. And so she says a child is not a plastic thing to be molded, but a being who should be understood. And so the teacher's role would be more like a custodian of the child. There'll be a lot of respect, and the teacher and child, in a sense, would be both on a learning journey, and teacher would only be the facilitator to bring out that uniqueness, to give enough avenues for the uniqueness of the child to be expressed.
Probably the most important of all of the objects of the Theosophical Society and the reasons for its founding is this idea of forming a nucleus of the universal brotherhood of humanity, an appreciation and understanding of the oneness of all life. In order to facilitate that, teachings were given, books were written, talks were given. Another profound tool that was left for our use, it came through H.P. Blavatsky, and it was given to an inner group of her students. She had many things to say about meditation during her life, but this actual approach to meditation was something that was left in a diagram form, diagram of meditation. It begins with these words, that first we must conceive of unity by expansion in space and infinite in time. It's a big ask. It's a strong demand. First conceive of unity is said to lead to a certain condition in our own minds. And that condition is that there is a perpetual sense of courage. She says even while sleeping, or whether we're awake or whether we're asleep, this courage manifests. And it's based on this whole sense that we are not separate from anything. So why fear? The absolute culmination of this is, as she describes it, I am all space and time.
According to the secret doctrine, every atom, every soul, every spark of existence carries within it the seeds of the universe itself. The same boundless fire that gave birth to stars burns within us. The same infinite intelligence that shapes galaxies pulses through every particle of our being. We are not isolated beings, nor are we here by chance. We are particles of matter, but we are also divine light, drawn into existence by divine thought. Our atoms dancing to the eternal rhythm of a shoreless ocean. The breath we take is the breath of the cosmos itself. Blavatsky was here to remind us that in the stillness of true meditation, we do not vanish, we become all things. This is the hidden wisdom, the secret carried by every living thing. The key to all knowledge is not outside, but within.
The whole idea of the secret doctrine is somewhat paradoxical because it's not secret in the sense of something that's hidden. Its secrecy is based on our inability or unwillingness to look more deeply. It's encoded in our being. Theosophical Society essentially began with two people, Olcott and Blavatsky, trying to share something in New York City. Now we're here in India, and this movement has spread around the world, and through this movement, it has touched people in every aspect of human life. Politics, science, music, the arts, all of them have been influenced from this very, very small beginning. And it's taken people to heights and directions that previously would have been unimagined.
Helena Blavatsky often spoke of fire as a symbol of divine wisdom, the eternal essence, and the transformative power of truth. She described it as the root of life, the force that both destroys illusion and reveals reality. She wrote that those who acquire this wisdom become fires themselves, beacons of truth, guiding others toward awakening.
At the beginning of human evolution, the spark, which is not really separate from the flame, but it is hanging on a thread of life that comes from the flame, that thread is very thin, and the communication between the spark, which let us say is our consciousness, and the communication between the spark and the flame is not very fluid, it's not very strong. However, as evolution proceeds, that thread begins to become more vital, begins to grow in volume. Eventually, that spark is going to return to the flame, to become one with the flame, in a phrase that in the secret doctrine is called the day be with us, the day where we all become one with the divine natures.
HPB talked an awful lot about the quality of light, the quality of flame, and the fact that within each and every one of us there is this divine flame that can be awakened. That was part of her message to the world, part of the light that she brought was this reminder that the same light she spoke about could be illumined inside of each of us. And she gives the example of how the power of this light is such that a small light, an individual, can illumine the world by lighting the same flame in countless others. She uses the example of an inexpensive candle. You light it once, and it can light 1,000, 1,000,000 candles just like it.
Before the worlds were formed, there was only the great darkness. Pure, infinite potential. And from this unseen abyss, the first light emerged. A single luminous ray piercing the unknown, giving birth to all existence. So it is with the soul. The seeker, cast into the shadows of illusion, must generate her own ray of awakening. The daring heart does not fear the unknown. It burns through the darkness and becomes the light. Just as in the vast and boundless void, the first ray of creation is born. Before she left this world, Helena Blavatsky spoke her final words, "Keep the link unbroken." This was not a farewell, but a command, a call to those who walk the path of wisdom, to carry the flame forward, to seek, to question, to know.
A life such as hers, lived completely in service to this idea, and what to her was a reality, that we are, in fact, inextricably linked to our own divinity, to this divine wisdom, requires awareness. I think in everything that she did, the real point of it is, just by speaking about divine wisdom, was to try and remind us, to try and point our attention in a direction that could assure that the link doesn't become broken, that the flame doesn't die out. The various metaphors for this quality of being that she took an entire lifetime and began a movement to try to awaken.
In every age, there are those who dare, those whose hearts burn with a fire that cannot be extinguished. They are the seekers, the fearless ones, the bearers of the ancient flame. They do not wait for light. They become light. Theosophy is the story of such souls. Helena Blavatsky and Henry Steele Olcott did not seek power, fame, or fortune. They sought truth, something greater than themselves, something eternal. They were people, flawed, human, daring, and yet through them, a movement was born that shook the world, ignited minds, and opened hearts to a wisdom older than time. Helena Blavatsky did not seek comfort, nor offer it. Instead, she pointed us towards the great mystery, towards within. Why are we here? She writes that this is a mystery so vast, so unfathomable, that even the highest beings in the cosmos bow before it in silence. It is the causeless cause, the rootless root, the unseen fire behind all existence. The great mystery does not ask for understanding, only for awe, for surrender, for the knowing that is beyond thought. To ask why is to chase the horizon, to grasp at smoke, for we are not here to answer, but to become. And so we move, spiraling through time's illusion, dancing between the seen and the unseen. until the breath withdraws, the veil lifts, and every spark remembers. It has always been one fire.